name is Gina Hemanover, and today we're working on our splits. Our front splits, left and right, and our wide splits, the transverse splits. I wasn't somebody that was always able to do the splits as a kid, not as an adult, and not after years of yoga, until I had decided that this was something I wanted in my practice. So I practiced every single day, working up to holding it for long periods of time. And now, even with all the running I do, I still do my splits after every run, after days of workouts, and in between. Every single day I still work on my splits. And this is more of a how-to video. It's not really flowing, it's not a very long yoga practice, but it's something you can use at home to help you work on your splits if that's what you want to do as well. Let's get started. You don't even need a mat. You could use a mat if you'd like, but we're just on the floor working on some splits, all right? I like to start my splits practice with my transverse splits. So let's take the legs out wide. And you're gonna go as wide as comfortable for you, trying to keep your toes and your knees up. And hands at the center, sitting up tall, and walk them out away from you. Only coming down as far as comfortable for you. Try to keep those toes and the knees up. A lot of times they want to come forward. A lot of times maybe the knees might bend, depending on your flexibility. Keep those toes and your knees up. And you hold it here. So when I'm working on my splits, if I want to get further into it or I want to get deeper into my practice, I will stay here for a while. Anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. If you are trying to get further and you want to progress, I would say working up to that 5 minutes. So maybe you start wherever you're at and you're just going to hold it for a minute. I would say try to stay there for a minute, maybe for a week, and practicing every single day. Every single day. I do my splits every single day. As a runner, one of the things that gets tight are those hamstrings, hips, so I do this after every time I run, and I do my splits every day. So, and I'll come forward. And also, depending on your flexibility, I will also come all the way forward and just stay here. So this way, my hips are being forced to open by the floor. I'm not worried about my toes and my knees right now. So then when I come up, I'm able to straighten it out. A lot of times you can also use your mat. Let's go to the edge of the mat. Whoops. Go to the edge of the mat and use that as your mark for how straight you're getting your legs. And hold it there. Sometimes I'll flex, point. It's a different stretch on each one, so flex and point. And stay here. So we're gonna scoop the legs up, bring it back together. And let's switch over to our left and right splits. I'm gonna go into down dog just because that helps stretch out the back of the legs. We'll pedal the feet back and forth, stretch your hamstrings, your calves. When it comes to your front splits, it's not just your hamstrings, so you know you have that back leg that goes back. That hip flexor needs to get open too, stretching out the thighs. So we gotta do both directions. We're gonna start with the right leg. I like to just lift it up, step it up, then drop that back knee down. Top of foot to floor. I always come into my low lunge first because we're gonna stretch that hamstring, the hip flexor and the quadricep, sink it in. And then, before we're going to splits, I also like to warm up the back of that front leg. Straighten the front leg, push the hips back. And also, a lot of people like to sit back here. I like to walk my hands forward. So you're extending long over that front leg, right leg. Tummy's pulled in. Keep your stomach pulled in, support your spine. And from here is when I'll go into my split. So, depending on your flexibility, Just creep those toes forward. Your hands hold you up. If you have blocks or other props, you can prop them right underneath that right hip, right underneath that sit bone. And then you have to use your hands so much, so then you can relax into it. And once again, I would stay there, start with a minute. Next week, try 2 minutes. Every day you're holding this pose. Every day you're practicing. So when you're getting close to being closer to the floor, don't just get to the floor, come over onto your side. Letting that back knee come out, top of foot comes off the floor. This is not where you want to be. So you want to keep the top of your back foot down. You want to keep the top of that back knee down and trying to keep your hips square to the front. Belly's pulled in, and then you're coming down. So once you get here, if this is where you're at, I practice coming forward and then pointing and flexing. Pointing and flexing, pointing and flex. Because if you're always used to pointing, that flex, you're going to feel that in those tendons, those muscles. If you're always used to flexing, try pointing. It changes the stretch a bit. And I'll come up and I'll try to square my hips a little bit more. Add a twist. Make sure that back foot is down, the knees down. You're not opening and turning off to the side. You want to keep those hips pointed to the front of your mat. So once you hold this, you're practicing. A lot of times I'll come out of it, hit a pigeon pose, just for fun, open up the hips a little bit more. And then we're going to put the hands on the floor, tuck the back toes, go back to your down dog. And of course, you might feel a little lopsided right now. Let's hit that other side. Lift the left leg up a little bit. Step it all the way up. Drop that back knee down. Top of the foot is on the floor. We're doing the low lunge first. Sinking into the hips. Push them forward. Opening up your right hip flexor. Get that nice stretch on the front side of your right thigh. Now we're switch. Push the hips back. A lot of times I like to bring my toes up. Helps flex the foot, square the hips. Coming forward, walk my hands forward instead of backward. The tummy's pulled in. Taking deep breaths. Long spine, and then we're bending into that front leg and slowly creeping those toes out. Making sure that back foot stays on the floor, the knee stays down, and if this is where you're at, you're going to hold it here. You do the same on each side, so if you're holding one side for a minute, you're holding the other side for a minute. So a week goes by, then you want to go up to 2. You could even break it down, maybe it's a minute and a half. Maybe go by half minutes each week, whatever you're comfortable with. And then the hips are squared, back foot is on the floor, the knees down, and you're coming down. Trying to keep those hips pointed as much as you can to the front. Then coming forward. Do that pointing, flexing, pointing, and flexing. It's not uncommon to have one split better than the other, maybe your right or your left. You just have to work on them both equally. So we're going to hit that pigeon pose. Let that leg bend, stretch out the hip. Hands to the floor. Tuck the toes, and I'm going back to my down dog. And wobbling out the legs. And gently come to your hands and knees. And sit back. So there are a lot of other poses that help with working on your splits. A few others that I like to do, just because you want to get that nice stretch of the front thighs, I like to practice my hero's pose. So coming down, if your butt isn't able to drop between the feet, you can use a block to start. But when you come down, maybe you're going to stay right here. If you want, you can lower all the way down. Let's get that nice stretch on the front of the thighs. You're looking straight up. Taking deep breaths. And slowly you're going to work yourself all the way back up. And coming forward, back onto hands and knees. Another one I like to do is just a standing forward fold or a seated forward fold. I'm going to go into standing. So walking your feet in and just getting that stretch, opening up the back of the legs. So you want to get the crown of your head pointed down towards the floor, tummy's pulled in. I always pedal my feet when I'm warming up just to alternate getting the stretch on the back of the legs. Sometimes both of them seems to be a little much, so you just go back and forth till it feels more comfortable. Tummy's pulled in, crown of your head's down towards your feet. Keep breathing. Inhale, flat back, lengthen. And then dropping back in. And slowly bend the knees. Coming all the way back down. And turn to the side here. Another one for getting the inner thighs. Just coming into your cobbler's pose. Bringing the feet together. Really open up the hips. See if you can get those knees out. Sitting up tall. Drop your chin and round down. And slowly coming on up. Let's do that seated forward fold. Sitting up tall. Inhale, arms out and up. And exhale, coming forward with a long spine. Relax the head and the neck. Toes up, knees up. Tummy's pulled in, supporting your spine. And inhales, you slowly roll on up. All right. So that is my practice, how I learned to do the splits. And when I was learning, I did it every single day. Every single day, every single day, every single day. And it came pretty quickly. When I was doing it every single day and practicing and holding it that long, I was able to do it. I was not somebody that was doing the splits as a kid. I always tell people you can still be flexible as you get older. Even if you're a runner, even if you've never ever been able to do the splits. So it just takes practice, consistent practice. So get out there, get on your mat, and let's get at those splits, all right? Thank you. Have a good day. Namaste.